Friends, allow me to be completely honest with you. A few months ago, I started adding a teaspoon of a certain substance to my morning tea, and already in 2 weeks, my wife began to beg me to stop. Not out of concern for my health, but because she said, "You are too energetic. I can't keep up with you." It was then that I realized I had found something amazing that every man over 60 must know. My name is Dr. Majid Kara. I am a specialist in men's health and a urologist with over 30 years of experience helping elderly men restore their vitality, confidence, and productivity without pills, chemicals, or empty promises.
На протяжении многих лет я вновь и вновь сталкивался с одной истиной. Старение не лишает мужественности.
It is simply ignored. Yes, it's a paradox. Most men are convinced that the decline of strength is inevitable. They perceive fatigue, lack of motivation, and sluggishness in the mornings as the new norm. However, just by adding a teaspoon of this substance to my tea, my body began to react as if I were 25 again. This tiny step activated a biological mechanism that I thought was a forever lost part of myself. In this video, I will tell you what this teaspoon represents, how it affects your body, and why it contributes to natural restoration of metabolism, energy, and hormonal balance without stimulants or deception. Just real rejuvenation backed by science. So stay with me, because soon I will explain why this morning ritual is so powerful that your wife will notice it, and perhaps she will be the first to tell you. Please, slow down. Before we continue, if you haven't subscribed yet, do so and activate notifications so you won't miss any of my weekly tips that help men over 60 feel stronger, more energetic, and more alive. If you liked what you heard, leave a 1 in the comments. If not, write 0 and let me know what advice you would like to hear next time. Before I tell you what this powerful teaspoon represents, let's figure out why many men over 60 wake up exhausted. For if you do not correct what happens in your body every morning, no supplements or secret ingredients will restore your energy and confidence. The main problem that many men over 60 ignore. Every morning, even before sunrise, millions of men over 60 sit with a cup of coffee or tea, hoping that the first sip will restore their strength. I know this state. I have experienced it myself. You wake up tired, even after a full sleep. Your body feels heavy, and your mind reacts slowly. You tell yourself, "I need some time to collect myself." But deep down, you understand that something is wrong. The inner engine that once roared with energy and ambition now merely hums quietly in the background. What is happening is not just fatigue, but a biological process. Waking up in the morning, the body begins to release cortisol, the main stress hormone. In youth, this morning surge of cortisol filled you with motivation, prompting you to get out of bed and be ready to face a new day. However, with age, constant stress, lack of sleep, nighttime anxieties, and aging itself can disrupt this system. Instead of a short and healthy peak, cortisol remains elevated for several hours. This condition blocks the production and action of testosterone, the hormone responsible for your strength, concentration, and vitality. Imagine cortisol and testosterone on scales. When one rises too high, the other falls. That's why many older men tell me, "Doctor, I'm not depressed, but I no longer feel like myself." They are not making it up. The chemistry of their bodies has changed. A high level of cortisol makes you anxious and distracted in the mornings, while a low level of testosterone leads to depression and lack of motivation, robbing you of the inner spark that once gave you confidence. And most men make a common mistake that I have observed more than once. They seek the strongest coffee, hoping that caffeine will give them a sharp boost. Of course, it provides a short-term effect, but at the same time raises cortisol levels. The organism perceives this surge as a stress signal rather than a burst of energy. Over time, this disrupts adrenal function, depletes metabolism, and creates a typical American roller coaster of energy fluctuations throughout the day. There is also the opposite reaction, doing nothing. Some simply drink tea, read a newspaper, or look at their phone, waiting to feel alert. The problem is that without the right signal, your metabolism slows down, blood sugar rises, and your body starts to store energy instead of using it. This is like a situation where a car runs in the driveway. It consumes fuel, but does not move forward. This is a part that many men do not realize. The morning hours are when your body is most receptive to signals. The first 30 minutes after waking are a biological gear wheel. What you do or don't do sets the hormonal rhythm for the entire day. You can tune your body for cooperation or, unknowingly, plunge it into a spiral of stress, fatigue, and imbalance. I remember a patient, a retired pilot named Jack, who came to me full of disappointment. "Doctor," he said, "I go to bed early, walk every morning, but still feel exhausted by noon. We conducted laboratory tests, and his cortisol level was off the charts while testosterone was critically low. He was neither lazy nor sick. Each new day he started with a body in a state of stress. As soon as we made a small change to his morning routine, he regained his energy in a few weeks. He described it as a true awakening. That's why your morning tea is more important than it may seem. What you add to it and the message you send to your body with the first sip will determine your state for the next 16 hours. If you can lower cortisol levels and gently activate metabolism, you will restore lost balance. This balance that many men lose over the years without realizing it. And this is where the magic begins. It's not about completely avoiding caffeine or increasing tea consumption, but about what you add to your cup. Just 1 teaspoon of the right ingredient can activate an internal switch, transforming your ordinary morning into hours of vibrant energy, calm focus, and renewed masculinity. Let's discuss what this ingredient is and why it can transform your morning and restore your masculine strength. Now about the power of the morning ritual. When I talk to men in their 60s, I often ask them a simple question. How do you start your morning? Most of them just shrug and reply something like, "Oh, I drink coffee, read the news, and hope the day goes well." They do not realize that these first moments after waking are the most powerful time of possibilities for their body throughout the day. The thing is, morning is not just a time for waking up, but a biological control center. The signals you send in the first 30 minutes determine your hormones, metabolism, and energy levels until sleep. The truth is that most men send the wrong signals without even realizing it. When I realized this, everything changed. For many years, I followed the same routine. I would wake up, look at my mobile phone, drink strong coffee, and strive to start the day. I functioned, but did not feel at my peak. I was not lazy, but I did not feel energized. Then one morning, I decided to approach my mornings mindfully, as I advise my patients. I replaced haste with ritual, and it was at that moment I understood something important. My day began to unfold differently. My energy no longer fluctuated or fell. It remained stable, calm, and grounded. My thoughts became clearer. My reaction to stress softened, and for the first time in a long time, I felt complete unity with my body. This is the true power of the morning ritual. It is not only what you drink, but also the message you send to your body through your actions. Starting the day with mindfulness and the right natural ingredients, you make your body respond to you. You are essentially telling your hormones, "We are safe, we are strong, and now is the time to achieve maximum results." This simple statement lowers cortisol levels, stabilizes blood sugar, and promotes a natural increase in testosterone and dopamine, substances that make us happy and active. It's like activating a biological switch that says, "Today, I'm on top." True magic happens when this statement becomes a habit. I watched as men completely transformed by simply changing their morning coffee to an act of self-care instead of panicking over caffeine. Imagine. Instead of immediately grabbing a cup of coffee, you wake up, enjoy the silence, breathe deeply, and add a teaspoon of something to your tea. You watch the steam rise, take the first slow sip, and your body receives a signal. This is serene power. In just a few minutes, you feel it. Energy without anxiety, vigilance without agitation, focus without clouded mind. I have seen how this ritual helps men who have lost hope to feel young again. They return after a few weeks and tell me, "Doctor, I don't understand what's happening, but I feel clearer, lighter, full of life." This is not a miracle, but the result of proper application of physiology. The very process of creating a ritual improves brain chemistry, reduces inflammatory markers, stabilizes heart rhythm, and tunes metabolism to burn rather than accumulate. This is the difference between reacting to the day and managing it. And this is what most men miss. The ritual becomes fascinating in the healthiest way. As soon as your body begins to perceive the morning calm, it starts to crave it. You wake up with the anticipation of this moment, not because of caffeine, but because you feel as if you are returning home to yourself. You stop fighting fatigue and begin to recharge your life energy. Therefore, I tell all men over 40 that your first cup in the morning can either drain you or define you. You make a choice. The ritual is the reset button your body has long awaited. And the most remarkable thing about it is that you don't need to completely change your life. It starts with one conscious step, a teaspoon, which I want to talk about, because what you add to your cup can become the spark that revives everything that age has taken from you. 3. The first teaspoon will be powdered maca root. When I first heard about maca root, I must admit I was skeptical. I dedicated years of my clinical practice to studying hormones, metabolism, and male vitality. Therefore, when one of the patients told me that he adds something called Peruvian ginseng to his tea and feels as if he has returned 20 years back, I politely smiled, keeping my doubts. But when the third, fourth, and fifth men, around 60 years old, began to speak of how they struggled with low energy, bad moods, and a decline in strength, I decided to try it myself. What I discovered was astonishing. The maca root is not a miracle cure. This humble root grows at heights where conditions are so harsh that only the strongest forms of life survive. It is this resilience that it offers to the men who use it. When I first added a teaspoon of gelatinous poppy powder to my morning tea, I did not expect much. The taste was earthy, almost nutty, with a slight sweetness reminiscent of caramel. However, after just a few days, I noticed barely perceptible changes. I started waking up before the alarm went off. My concentration increased and the usual morning fatigue gradually disappeared. My patients began reporting similar feelings. "Doctor, I don't know what's happening, but I feel young again." That's why it works. Maca does not contain hormones, but it interacts with the system that controls their levels, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. This is the control center, where the brain and body decide how much testosterone, cortisol, and dehydroepiandrosterone to produce. With age, stress, and time disrupt the balance of this system, causing it to send incorrect signals. Maca helps restore this connection, allowing the body to regulate itself naturally. The result is not a temporary high or artificial excitement, but harmony. You feel energetic, calm, and full of life rather than nervous or agitated. Moreover, there is something deeply psychological about it. When a man begins to feel this subtle return, a calm confidence in the mornings, clarity of mind, and a spark of desire, everything changes. One of my patients, a retired professor aged 64, told me, "It's as if my body has remembered how to be me again." He confessed that he started waking up earlier, feeling the desire to move, go outside, and connect with people again, not out of vanity, but because he finally felt alive. That's what I like about poppies. They restore not only hormones but also the sense of self. He reminds what it is like to be fully in one's body again. Most men do not realize how much energy their absence takes from them, not only physically, but also emotionally. It deprives them of joy in simple things, curiosity about everyday life, and even intimacy with loved ones. Maca begins to correct this, revitalizing both body and spirit in a completely natural way. If you decide to try it, I recommend using gelatinized maca powder. During its preparation, the starch is removed, making it much easier to digest. 1 level teaspoon added to hot tea or even coffee will be quite enough. Take it daily for several weeks, and you will notice changes. Clarity of thought, stable mood, lightness in the body, and a desire to move. You won't have to force yourself to be active. Motivation will return naturally. And yes, your partner will notice it too. Energy, joy, focus, all of this will come back to you in ways that cannot be hidden. Some men shared with me that their wives or partners jokingly ask, "What are you drinking every morning from that cup?" There is a charm in this. It's not about productivity, but about being fully present, about being aware of one's life. But what if your morning is filled not with a light impulse, but with something deeper? A constant tension, a restless sleep, or that feeling of fatigue that seems endless. For although the poppy can ignite a spark, there is another powerful root that calms the storm. We will talk about this further. The second ingredient is a teaspoon of ashwagandha root powder. If maca is the spark that ignites your inner fire, then ashwagandha is the calm that keeps that fire burning. I first learned about ashwagandha many years ago when studying Ayurvedic medicine, but it was only when I began to apply it in my life that I realized its true power. During that time, I felt overwhelmed. My practice, research, and family concerns drained me. Sleep was shallow, my mind restless, and the patience I once prided myself on had run out. At that moment, I returned to this ancient herb, whose name translates to horsepower. And, in a sense, this name is more than appropriate. Ashwagandha does not wake you up like caffeine and does not fill the body with stimulation. Instead, it quietly restores the balance disrupted by stress. When I started adding just 1 teaspoon to my morning tea, I felt what I hadn't felt in years. It was not a sleepy calm or laziness, but a deep sense of serenity, as if my nervous system had finally been able to breathe deeply for a long time. It is one of those changes that surprise you. You do not wake up one day, completely transformed. You simply realize that you no longer feel the constant struggle with your body. Many men over 60 do not realize how much energy chronic stress takes from them. They believe that fatigue and irritability are just a part of aging. However, physiologically, the following occurs. Constant stress keeps cortisol levels too high for too long. As cortisol rises, testosterone levels decrease. The body stops recovering and begins to break down. This depletes your energy, sleep, and ultimately, confidence. The beauty is that ashwagandha can break this vicious cycle. It tells your body that you are safe. Once your system perceives this, it begins to heal. One of my patients, Richard, a retired engineer around 70 years old, once said that ashwagandha makes him feel as if his mind has stopped vibrating. "It's not that I have more energy," he explained, "but that I'm no longer wasting it." This is exactly what happens. When you stop expending your energy on constant tension, your body can direct it towards truly important things: recovery, reflection, movement, and a full life. The positive effects of ashwagandha go beyond simple mood enhancement. Research shows that it can lower blood pressure, improve sleep quality, and even aid muscle recovery. But what amazes me the most is its ability to restore emotional balance. Men who have experienced irritability or anxiety for years suddenly begin to feel calmer, more focused, and patient with both others and themselves. Their wives notice this too. I had patients who came to my clinic and said with a smile, "Doctor, I don't know what you gave him, but he has become a completely different person." The taste of ashwagandha has an earthy, slightly bitter, and rich tone.